Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. Hope all of you are doing well. This is a video session on daily news and editorial analysis dated 26th of December. Through this video session, I'll be discussing the important news and editorial both from the Hindu and Indian Express. The analysis of the news will specifically cater the aspirant of civil services examination, state public service commission examination, and one day examination conducted by various agencies of Government of India and the state government. So through this video session, I'll be giving you the in-depth analysis of the news that will help you from the examination perspective. First, I'll give you the highlights of the news and then we'll proceed in detailed analysis of the news one by one. Starting with the highlights of the day. The first important news talks about the India's ASEAN that is looking forward to revamp the overall trade pact. This is specifically regarding to the FTA. So there's a revamp which is coming between India and ASEAN nation. The second important news talks about the payment that is being done to the UAE in rupee. This is something which will call for more robustness in terms of relationship between India and UAE and further augment the rupee to make the payment for the oil purchase. Third important news talks about the railway officers to be trained for the disaster management, something very important considering the fact that recently we have been reported with some of the severe cases of the rail accident. So because of that fact, government is taking the cognizance and they're asking that railway officers need to be trained with the disaster management. The second last news talks about UNHRC that has praised India for the part of assistance that they have got in saving the life for 142 Rohingyas. We'll see detail to that. And I'll be concluding the session with editorial that talks about the global goal on adaptation. This is basically the roadmap that was set during the Paris Climate Agreement, and even the COP28 has given it further wings to ensure that we are put in right place for the global goal on adaptation. So these are for today's discussion. Let's get started with the in-depth and detailed analysis of the news one by one. So the first important news is about the India's ASEAN to modernize the free trade agreement. If you look at the part of ASEAN member, it is something very important for country like India that we have established a relationship जहाँ पे free trade agreement एक बहुत ही strong or even if you look at the strengthened part between the trade between India and the ASEAN members. So India and ASEAN will continue and begin a review. So this will be a review because the pact was signed in 2009. Now, post to that, there were some changes, and the enforcement was made in 2010. So close to like 2000. I mean, from 2010 onwards, it is close to 13 year completed. तो एवरेज 14 ईयर आप ले सकते हैं जहाँ पे नेक्स्ट मंथ इस पे टॉक होनी है एंड बोथ द आसियान मेंबर्स एंड इंडिया इज लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू मॉडर्नाइज देयर फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट. Now, what is the roadmap? How the entire thing will be planned between India and ASEAN member? जो first round of negotiation है, specifically with regards to the free trade agreement, it was officially told that specifically जो ASEAN और India की trade and goods services की agreement है, that will be there in February 2024. So during this meeting, they will look for overall of the FTA, how the modern approach can be done for the free trade agreement. Apart from that, जो नेगोशिएशन है वो इस तरह पे भी एम करेगी कि किस तरह से कंट्रीज एम करे फॉर 2025. सो अ टारगेट विल बी सेट so that how the performance is going between India and ASEAN in terms of FTA. There will be a complete relook at the FTA जहाँ पे broad objectives होंगे in bringing down the trade deficit. If you look at the trade deficit between the countries, right, so we need to definitely narrow it. The part which is still broadened need to be reduced down. एंड स्पेसिफिकली इस तरह के क्वेश्चंस आपके मेंस में काफ़ी ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. दे कैन आस्क यू, यूपीएससी कैन आस्क यू अबाउट द पार्ट ऑफ द ट्रेड विच इज स्टैग्नेंट ऑन द पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया एंड ASEAN, what need to be done. And even those student or aspirant who are having PSIR as an option, उन बच्चों के लिए भी ये टॉपिक काफ़ी ज़्यादा रेलिवेंट है. नाउ इंडिया वांट टू मोनेटाइज द पार्ट ऑफ FTA. पूरी मॉडर्नाइजेशन की बात की गई है फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट को लेकर के, विच वॉज साइंड 15 ईयर क्लोज टू 15 ईयर बैक, राइट. So the new agreement is a product of the specific rule जहाँ पे trade remedies and even how we can augment the overall trade balance, right? And even the part of FTA negotiation which was there. So everything will be taken into consideration. Now, the areas like labor, environment, small and medium enterprises, and gender are likely to be kept out of this discussion because this will specifically emphasize on the part of the FTA and trade deficits. That's it. Now, trade deficits की अगर बात करें, India trade deficit with ASEAN nation is $7.5 billion per annum. Now, this is again something very important. These are the facts that even you can utilize this as a fodder point in the mains examination. अगर आपको मौका मिले तो इस तरह के points आप जरूर वहाँ पे लिखें. Now, this has surged to 43.57 billion for the financial year 2023. So you can see from 7.5 it has jumped to 43.57, which is a huge number. In 2022-23, India has exported the region with a value of 44 billion, with the import were at 87.57 billion dollars. So these are the data-driven facts. If you're able to recall this in the mains examination, it is well and good. If not, you just need to know the trend. Now, revamping the part of overall trade between the ASEAN and India, अगर इसकी बात करें मॉडर्नाइजेशन की, तो रूल ऑफ ओरिजिन पे सबसे पहले ध्यान दीजिए कि दिस इज नोन एज RRO, राइट. द रूल ऑफ ओरिजिन will ensure that India's market access will prevent from the goods entering into China through the ASEAN countries, and India is actually looking forward कि ASEAN पूरे member countries के साथ इंडिया के negotiation या फिर free trade agreement है वो और ज़्यादा strengthen. Now, RRO is a criteria जहाँ पे determine की जाती है origin of the product. See, for any product which you buy, you come to know the product manufacturing and the origin country. So the origin of the product and establish that whether if it is qualified for duty under FTA or not. If it is under that country which actually levies some taxes, then ultimately the tax need to be paid by India as well. So sectors that need to be propelled include the chemical, alloy, plastics, rubber, mineral, leather, textile, gems, jewelries as per the industry's analysis. So these are the overall part of the revamping the free trade agreement or the trade negotiation between India and ASEAN as a member. Now, a brief about ASEAN. I think most of you must be aware of ASEAN details. So it's a 10-member country which actually account for 11.3%. If you look at the data, I mean the data-driven fact, 11.3% of India's global trade in 2023. So this is for the financial year 23, right? And the member countries include Brunei, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, Myanmar, and Laos. So these are the member country. Many a times a direct question is asked in the one-day examination although कि कौन कौन से मेंबर कंट्रीज आसियान के हैं या नहीं है, तो ये आपको बेसिक्स पता होनी चाहिए. Now moving ahead with other news, first rupee payment which was made to UAE, something that called for strengthening and even giving more broader perspective to Indian rupee. So India has made a history by conducting and making the payment in the INR. Prior to that, we use US dollar, right? The US dollar actually में use की जाती थी. Now we're using rupee to make the payment, and this was done for the first time with the UAE. So something very important which will call for promoting of the local currency at the global level. And for India precisely it will also help जहाँ पे अगर हमारी फॉरेस्ट रिजर्व की बात करें उसकी भी जो कमी होती थी उसकी शॉर्टफॉल में भी बैलेंस आउट की जा सकती है. Now, what is the aim and significance of this move? So this move was actually aligned with the RBI move. इसके लिए रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया, इंडिया के जो एपिक्स बैंक है, उसने भी रिकमेंडेशंस की थी और अलाउ किया था दैट इम्पोर्टर्स टू पे रूपी and exporter to receive the payment in local currency. This was actually pitched by the Reserve Bank of India. और इस पर्टिकुलर एड जो खास करके अगर बात करें रूपी पेमेंट की क्या है, फर्स्ट इज टू डाइवर्सिफाई द ऑयल सप्लाई. Second is to reduce the transaction cost. So every part of the transaction has some transaction cost. So it will ensure that the transaction cost is reduced. Promote rupee as a trade settlement currency. So this is something. These are the main aim. If it is asked in prelims examination also, you have answer to this. And if you're writing in mains specifically, you can highlight the significance of this. Now India aims to explore the trade settlement. अगर बात करें trade settlement की, इंडियन रुपीज में अगर ट्रेड सेटलमेंट होती है, देन अगेन दिस इज INR which will call for streamlining the transition by eliminating the currency conversion. So currency conversion की जो charges हैं that will be again waived off and India will ultimately obliged to pay that on the INR, which will definitely give recognitions to the Indian rupee as well. Now, India UAE की rupee settlement की अगर बात करें, this was actually formalized in July this year only 2023, where both countries are look forward, जहाँ पे India की IOC जो है Indian Oil Corporation is making the payment for the purchase of 1 billion barrel from the Abu Dhabi National Oil Corporations in Indian rupees. So this has something which was done on a micro level, but now Government of India has said that they will be doing a transition between UAE in INR. So additional some Russian import have also been settled in Indian rupee. These are all at the micro level, right? So ये सारी चीज़ों जो की गई थी वो micro level पे थी. Over 85% of the oil needs are on the part of import. इंडिया की जो ज़रूरतें हैं and multifaceted strategy की ज़रूरत है, emphasizing on the part of cost effective supplies. उसके अलावा जो हमारी diversification है supply की उसे देखनी होगी, and adhering to the international obligation are something which India will also have to oblige with, because we cannot make rupee payment to all countries. There is a negotiation, there is a settlement. For that countries only we can proceed further with making the payment in the INR. Now, India's oil import की अगर बात करें, I think most of you must be aware of the fact that we import most of our oil. So in the financial year 2022, India has spent 157 billions on importing, and this is for 237 million crude ton oil. So these are the data driven. If you are able to recall, well and good, and nothing to worry if you are not able to recall for this data. Now, key suppliers की अगर बात करें, जो countries हमें supplies करती हैं, that include Iraq, then we have Saudi Arabia, we have Russia, and you have United Arab Emirates, right? Apart from this, West Asia contribute to 57% of the total oil supplies. Now, the domestic supplies meets this 15% of the demand. जो हमारी domestic है, वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ इंडिया की 15% डिमांड को कैटर करती है. Rest 85% are being imported. Now, moving ahead, railway officers to be trained in the disaster management. We have seen the recent incident in the Balasore, Odisha में जो train accident हुई थी. This was a disastrous accident that we have witnessed in couple of years. तो इस चीज़ को ध्यान में रखते हुए और भी ऐसे कई इंसिडेंट हुए हैं उसके बाद भी मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रेलवे ने डिसाइड किया है कि डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट की ट्रेनिंग दी जाएगी टू द रेलवे ऑफिसर्स. फॉर टाइम में इट इज़ ओनली फॉर द ऑफिसर्स लेवल, जो ऑफिसर ट्रेनीज होंगे उनके लिए होगी. बाद में से और हायरार्की के लेवल पे भी ट्रेन किया जाएगा. Now there's a comprehensive training program. This is called as CTP, comprehensive training program. This will allow the disaster management, right? The DM, disaster management, to be incorporated in the training module. जो भी officer induct होंगे, whether they are from the IRMS, Indian Railway Management Service, Indian Railway Traffic Services, या Indian Railway Personnel Services. Now IRMS and IRTS were actually prior to that. अभी IRMS की सिर्फ रिक्रूटमेंट की जाती है UPSC combined examination CSE के थ्रू, बाकी और सारी चीज़ों की रिक्रूटमेंट अलग लेवल पे होती है, राइट. So this is how the part is taken care of, and the training module will be there in the foundational course as well, जहाँ से mid career training programs में भी इसे include किया जाएगा. Now the training, the Apex Institution for Railway Training is a national academy for Indian Railway, जो कि वडोदरा में based है, and this is also the institution for national importance. Railway Institute of Disaster Management Bengaluru will also be collaborating in imparting the comprehensive training programs, right? The move after the investigation will have we have seen the devastating effect and the train accident ongoing in Odisha Balasore region, which actually led to the death of 290 passengers, right? So these are the things that is taken into consideration, and government is looking forward with a long-term approach where we need to curb out with such accident taking place in Indian Railways. Now moving ahead with other news, UNHCR thanks India for taking Rohingyas into consideration, because the ship that was lost with the connection finally was actually being traced out by the government of India. So United Nations High Commission of Refugees has expressed their gratitude, जहाँ पे Indian authorities को they have thanked actually for the Andaman and Nicobar Island, where 142 Rohingyas refugees were intercepted at Shahid Deep, which was earlier known as Neil Island. Now this is again important. इससे पहले Neil Island भी कहते थे. This can be important for prelims and many other competitive examination as well. Now UNHRC की क्या response रही है? They have actually thanked Indian Coast Guard. So they have thanked Indian Coast Guard for their serving and for their attitude towards saving the human life. The boat from Bangladesh was 14 to 15 days ago, where they were actually leaving from Indonesia, and 47 women or 59 minors उसमें actually थे. The Noble Act for Humanity were relieved for the part of distress, और वहाँ के लोगों के लिए भी काफ़ी ज़्यादा सिचुएशन वर्स थी. नाउ यू कैन यूज़ दिस एग्जाम्पल एज अ केस स्टडी इन जनरल स्टडीज पेपर फॉर एथिक्स के पेपर में, कि किस तरह से ग्लोबल लेवल पे भी इंडिया ने अपनी एथिक्स या फिर आप कह सकते हैं कि ह्यूमैनिटी की तरफ एक एग्जाम्पल सेट किया. Now, if you look at the map here, now this can be important for prelims question as well. This is Myanmar region. This is Rankine province, जहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा Rohingyas की population actual में, right? These were lost in the region of Andaman, somewhere close to here. And the border countries and the neighboring countries include Thailand. Then we have Malaysia, we have Sri Lanka, and this is adjacent boundary to India. Another country is Bangladesh. So these are some of the important part that you need to know. I mean, आपको इतना basics पता होना चाहिए. Now, call to the control room. Basically, the government actually has taken into consideration जहाँ पे Port Blair पुलिस को inform किया गया था कि some suspicious boat is moving near the Shahid Deep, which was earlier known as Neil Island. और multiple coast guard की जब security बढ़ाई गई वहाँ पे coast guard, marine police and other navies, they have found that Rohingyas were actually, they have lost out their connections and they were moving out in a different directions. So this is how India has given assistance to specifically people belonging to the Myanmar. Now moving ahead with the editorial for the day that talks about the global goal on adaptations and the road from Dubai. Why from Dubai? Because recently COP28 की अगर बात करें, this took place in Dubai. Something which called for adaptations, loss and damage fund फर्स्ट डे में ही एक एजेंडा पे रखी गई थी, और भी काफ़ी इंपॉर्टेंट डिस्कशंस हुए हैं, बट ग्लोबल एडेप्टेशन इज समथिंग विच विल बी फोकसिंग अपॉन. नाउ मूविंग अहेड, देखेंगे क्या क्या चैलेंजेस हैं ग्लोबल गोल एडेप्टेशंस को लेकर के. मेजरिंग द ग्लोबल गोल ऑन एडेप्टेशंस, क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस एंड मिटिगेशन बायस, एंड विल कंक्लूड दिस सेशन. Now COP28, which is something very important that set a mark. अगर बात करें COP28 की, जो कि दुबई में हुई थी, अडेप्टेशंस के अलावा बहुत सारे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ों पे डिस्कशन हुई. COP26 की जो मोमेंटम थी, COP26 and 27, that was also taken into consideration with the adaptations of global goal on adaptations, right, which was actually outlined during the Paris climate agreement, right. So this signifies the combating the part of the climate change and promoting the adaptations efforts globally. तो globally, worldwide इसको acknowledge करने की बातें कही गई हैं. Now these changes are even happening at only 1.1 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrial level, which was set at 1.5 degrees Celsius beyond that, right? Now, if you look at the part of graph representation here, this is something to give you other idea. अगर temperature goals और global goal और adaptations की बात करें, so the adaptation action is linked to enhance the adaptive capabilities, strengthening the resilience, and even reduce the visibility to the climate change, reduce the vulnerability, just to correct, reduce the vulnerability to the climate change, right? And other details are mentioned over there. You can pause it, or even you can take screenshot for your revision purposes. Now challenges क्या क्या हो सकती हैं GGA के implementations में, अगर global goal on adaptations की बात करें, it will save the and it need to be prioritized in terms of actions. किस तरह के actions की ज़रूरत है, ये highlight already की गई थी पेरिस क्लाइमेट एग्रीमेंट में, जहाँ पे vulnerabilities पे खासा ध्यान देने की बात की गई थी, and this was something the timeline that was set for 2030. Now it is a time that is provided by 2027, ताकि जो parties हैं, parties mean the member countries, scope के जितने members हैं उसे parties कहते हैं. The parties must have मल्टी हजार्ड्स अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम, जिसको इंडिया ने भी काफ़ी हद तक इस आइडिया को पिच किया है, एडवोकेट किया है. दे आर एक्चुअली सपोर्टिंग दिस आइडिया, राइट. क्लाइमेट इंफॉर्मेशन ऑन रिस्क रिडक्शंस, जो रिस्क रिडक्शंस हैं उनके लिए, और सिस्टमैटिक ऑब्जर्वेशंस टू सपोर्ट द इम्प्रूव्ड क्लाइमेट डेटा इंफॉर्मेशन एंड सर्विसेज. मेजरिंग द ग्लोबल गोल ऑन एडेप्टेशन, ये क्यों ज़रूरी है? बिकॉज दिस इज नेसेसरी दैट वी नीड टू नो दैट वेयर वी आर एंड वेयर वी आर लैकिंग. सो this is something called for adaptations plan, policies and strategy, and also the roadmap that is adequately required. Now the greenhouse gases mitigation is something that is very important. जो global goal in adaptations है, that is a 2-year long program calling for the tracking procedures and even understanding the nuances and the shortfall where we are lacking. The parties are expected to implement this national adaptations plan and policy strategies by 2030 and ensure that we are making a substantial progress on the part of adaptations. Now GGF framework की अगर बात करें, as I've told, it's a 2-year program जहाँ पे काफ़ी सारे indicators, targets होंगे जो कि already mentioned है para 9-10 of the GGA draft, that is Global Goal on Adaptations. Now, climate finance is again a big issue, and this was an issue which has continued from the Paris Climate Agreement. उसके बाद COP 27 की अगर बात करें, वहाँ पे भी लॉस एंड डैमेज फंड को एक्चुअली अप्रूवल मिली थी, बट उसकी जो फंडिंग है, जो फाइनेंसेस की बात है, वो COP 28 में फाइनल की गई, बट स्टिल देयर इज अ लैकिंग कि कौन कंट्री कितनी कंट्रीब्यूट करेगी, इसके बारे में अभी भी बहुत ज़्यादा क्लैरिटी नहीं है, राइट? Now, the things is there that the climate finance is something which need to be taken into consideration. COP 26 में इसके बारे में अर्ज की गई है और इसको लेकर के ड्राफ्ट डिसीजंस भी आई. The estimation has been made that the national determined contribution, जिसे NDCs भी कहते हैं, the country need to plan their indications and figure out 71 billion per year from now till 2030. So this is something, but it actually has landed that $100 billion की बात की है, which has not yet been met because the country concerned has not given their consent that how much they are going to contribute. Now conclusions की अगर बात करें, global goal and adaptations, this is something which need to be contain a number of development very useful to cause the adaptations. Implementing of the global goal and adaptations need to have more urgency in terms of treating adaptations as par with meeting phase and extreme climate vulnerabilities. So everything to make and ensure that GGA, the Global Goal on Adaptation, is a success. The member country need to have an adequate participations and even to a larger extent, जिस तरह से पेरिस क्लाइमेट एग्रीमेंट में इंटेंडेड नेशनल डिटरमिन्ड कंट्रीब्यूशन थी, जिसे अब NDCs भी कहते हैं, वो सारे कंट्रीज को अडॉप्ट करने की जरूरत पड़ेगी. Now moving ahead with the answers and discussions. For the first question, the correct option is B. This is for the Saturday questions. You check what you have marked as the correct option. इसमें statement 1 correct है और statement 3 correct. Now for the question number 2, we have both the statement correct. This was about one station, one product. So both the statement are correct in this context. Now daily MCQs question for the day. The first question is about the radio galaxy, which was there in the news recently. So you have to check and consider the statement. They release more light at the radio frequency than the visible frequency. Thermal emissions drive them. This outcome are interactions between the charged particles, supermassive black holes, and the magnetic fields. So check out for the correct option, and you can participate in the question answer series by writing your comment. Writing your answer in the comment section down below. Right. Now, the second question for the day is about the Sundarban Tiger Reserve. It's located in the southern part of the total Gangetic Delta. It comprises of estuaries, river channel, creeks that surround the number of Iceland. So the same participation method, question number 2 लिख करके आप जो correct options हैं वो हमें comment section में लिख करके ज़रूर बताएं. Your participation will definitely add more value to us, and we indeed will come up with more good questions for you. So this was all about for the daily news and editorial analysis followed by the MCQ questions. If you have any other concern about test series, program, new admissions and other part, you can reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for staying connected.